Welcome back to another episode of the Agency Digital Podcast. Today, we're joined by a special guest, the president at the Isidore Group, Sebastian Abbinanti. Sebastian, it's great to have you here today.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to meet you and have this podcast together.
Great. So, for people hearing about you for the first time, who is Sebastian?
Well, I am the president of the Isidore Group. We founded the Isidore Group in 2014, and
Hmm.
our whole purpose behind what we do here at the Isidore Group is to help our clients be better at what they do best. That kind of translates into a lot of the experience that I've had in my life. Personally, I've been in IT now for over 30 years, and I really cut my teeth in the industry in K through 12 education, and then had a very strong focus towards networking and network security, ultimately bringing me to the foundation of the Isidore Group, which is a MSP that's vertically agnostic, but we really focus heavily on security and cybersecurity and compliance for a lot of our clients. So we've got clients in various different industries, but a lot of them have compliance and regulatory bodies that govern how they maintain and process data. So that's an area that I was uniquely qualified and kind of build a company around that.
Hmm. Interesting. And so, what happened in 2014? What was the kind of inflection point or moment where said that you will start your own thing?
Yeah, so I was working for a company, and the company just wasn't really doing well, and it was one of those things where I had an honest conversation with one of my clients, and he kind of urged me to go off and begin my own venture. I was getting ready to make a move to another organization, and at this point, I had spent a lot of my career in networking, but I had just kind of really
Mm,
moved into more of the organizational management and really understanding how to better migrate IT service providers into more of managed services providers. So that's something I had done for the company that I was with there, and they were having some ownership struggles. So ultimately, it was time for me to jump ship. And after I did that, I was able to really build something that I could be proud of. I know right off the bat, my number one goal was obviously to really focus on helping our clients, but also an internal focus. I wanted to build a company that I wanted to work for, not just one that
mm,
I wanted to own, not just one that I wanted to run, but one that I would want to work for. And I wanted to make sure that that became a part of our culture. So for us, internally speaking, when it comes to our staff, our culture is our most valuable asset, and it's something that we prize. We make it a point to only hire people that add to our. Even being culture neutral is not enough.
mm. Yeah, that's a great rule to stick by to, uh create a environment where you would like to work. That's a great rule. And like regarding you know uh the CMMC compliance and data breach insurance, those are kind of the things that I see you posted about, kind of the main thing that SMBs are getting wrong. So what is one thing that you see boutique operators in your space still underestimate about security and compliance that actually costs them later?
Absolutely. It's kind of surprising to me that after all these years, the ransomware attacks have really been at the forefront of most small businesses' minds since about 2012, and we're still having conversations with small business owners and even some medium-sized business executives that think that the size of their organization really has an impact on whether or not they're going to be targeted. The reality is that the net is just so wide that most people don't realize that you do not have to be a $300 million company in order to be an attack for to be an attractive target for a threat actor. And when you misgauge that, what ends up happening is you put yourself in a vulnerable position that, without realizing that, your size actually increases your vulnerability, right? The fact that you do
Hmm.
not have the resources to throw at defending an active attack or at remediating the effects of that attack after the fact. So, this is a situation where, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, to use the tired old cliche, but it's actually true. And what I find is that oftentimes managed services providers are trying to cater to the client's wants and not necessarily drawing a hard line from the sand to make sure that the client need is clear. For us, one of the principal rules of client acquisition is that we only work with people I like. And ultimately, what that means to me is that I can't be more invested in your company than you are. So when we look at clients that come to us and say, "Oh, well, we're a trucking company, so if it doesn't involve trucking, we don't want to spend money." Well, that's fine, but if your trucks have nowhere to go because your dispatch software is not functioning, or the server infrastructure is down, or something worse, you've had a data breach and now your clients don't want to use you because you have a reputational issue. These are kinds of issues that IT service providers can't always solve at the back end. I can't fix your reputation. I can't fix the financial fallout. I can fix the actual device that may have gone down, and I can certainly stop the attack after it started. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I can recover your business to the point in which it was before. What I can do is help prevent those kinds of things from happening ahead of time. And I think when managed services providers focus again on just getting that client and really understanding that they're lean and they don't want to spend money in these areas, and it's not a real issue for them. It is, and I equate that to malpractice on a lot of MSPs and MSSPs when they sit there and say, well, you really do not need to be monitoring your Microsoft environment, or yeah, even though we do log in, we don't necessarily need to use a multi-factor authentication simply because it's just too cumbersome for the CEO.
Hmm.
Well, that's not really a good excuse. And ultimately, the way I look at it, what I tell my people all the time is that we're responsible for countless thousands of lives downstream from us, right? There's so
Hmm.
much that's put on us to maintain and to secure. And the same is true for all of our clients. You are responsible as a business owner for all of the data you process for every employee that works for you, and all the data that you process for every client you have, and everyone that works for those clients too. So when you look at it from that perspective, you really understand that security is everyone's problem, and it's something that we all need to be mindful of and pay attention.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And like, most IT firms, I feel like they pitch speed and uptime. Um, what do you think uh these SMBs need from a technology partner?
I think they need honesty. I think they need a technology partner who's going to tell them exactly how it is. These are the risks without any of the hyperbolic, scary, the ransomware attackers hiding in the closet piece, right? I'm kind of done with the, you know, uh, advertisements with the dark room and the guy in the hoodie. I know we have some of those too out there. I'm sure you could find them, but we're kind of done with that. That's not what it's about. We're not looking to scare people. Again, our goal is to make people better at what they do best. And that means that there are certain things that I can do better than a small business that's not in IT can do. And by leveraging those different aspects of experience and expertise, we can really build something great together. So when we look at what a MSP is, they should not function as a vendor in a traditional sense. And we'd love to throw
Mhm.
around this term partner, but its meaning has been diminished over time. Ultimately, what I want to position the Isidore Group as an internal component of a company, as internal resources, as that in-house IT department, that in-house CIO and that in-house CTO and that in-house, a CSO. So when we look at that from that perspective, we then take ownership of our clients, and we then take ownership of their environments, and we take ownership of their processes, and we certainly take ownership of their security. So as important as uptime is, because obviously what's the point if you can't use it, as important as it is, the idea here is that it's twofold. When we're looking at uptime as just keeping things running, then we're missing the bigger picture. We need to make sure that we're not just keeping things running, but we're keeping things running well. We're keeping things running securely, and we're keeping things running in a way that's sustainable and scalable as the business needs change.
Hmm. Sebastian, what do you think about the use of AI um, in the work that you do, for example? Where do you see the biggest benefit, and is there a place where you see it still kind of lacking?
Well, I think for me, when I look at where is AI lacking, I look at it from a security perspective. That's really kind of how I'm built. So if we're looking at the lack of AI, this is one of the things that I've struggled with my entire life. I've worked with a lot of developers. I've worked with a lot of people that like to push things to the bleeding edge, and that's fantastic. It really drives progress, but also functionality isn't the whole picture, right? Security is a big piece of that too. And what we typically find with all of these technologies is we typically jump before we look down. And when we're doing that, we don't really have an eye to security. So I have a lot of clients that are looking to talk to AI, and Microsoft's been pushing Copilot. And we've got clients that are just like, yeah, I want to give Claude access to my entire SharePoint. Like, well, maybe we should look at your entire SharePoint first, right? Let's look and see what Claude's actually going to have access to before you just make that determination, because you don't realize that without having put the proper time in and attention to actual security, actually classification of data, putting those kinds of efforts on the back burner and just jumping into AI, AI is going to do exactly what you tell it to do. And if you're going to tell
Hmm.
it to go ahead and index all this information and then answer questions based on it, yeah, there's really no reason why, if there's a document that's got the CEO's salary on it, that the AI won't be able to bring that up to any low level employee that asks for it. And that's just a internal reputational issue. That doesn't even begin to talk about some of the other information that can be out there. We work with law enforcement agencies. We have
Hmm.
strict policies and governance as to how we maintain any data we obtain from our clients. If we didn't have those, the potentiality for that kind of information to be accessible to AI, where AI can learn on it, or somebody who shouldn't have access to it could report on it, that's problematic. So what ends up happening is that in a lot of businesses, you see this huge push to adopt AI without taking the time to put the necessary safeguards and precautions in place. So that's where we spend a lot of our time when we're preparing AI for our clients. Internally, we use AI a lot, and it's not just a enhanced Google search. Oftentimes, we'll use AI for report productions, and we'll use AI to summarize information and even make suggestions. So we use AI for our ticket triaging, but we use it so that it only makes suggestions. At the end of the day, our staff must approve the recommendations that it makes. There's no automation where it just makes decisions for us. And on the same token, we are not going to unleash AI on our clients to solve technical problems. There's too much nuance out there, and AI is not at the point in which it can think the way that we want it to think. But also from a more anthropological or ontological perspective, AI doesn't have a soul. So a lot of the things that govern the way that we act and some of the things that we do don't necessarily exist in AI. So to the point in which you are making a decision that has an ethical bound or a moral component, I don't trust
Hmm.
AI there either. So ultimately, what it really comes down to is having an understanding of the awesomeness of the power of this technology and understanding the limitations that it has as well, and making sure that we solve for those limitations. When we're looking at processing data, when we're looking at storing data, when we're looking at clients that have compliance requirements, it's a whole different ball of wax. And AI was not built with that in mind. So having a trusted partner that understands AI and understands compliance is really key if you're in any industry that requires any compliance. And the reality is, with all these new FTC regulations that have come out. Obviously, HIPAA is another piece of it, and the concern with PII. Every organization is in that environment. There is some regulation that manages that is for some regulation that every single organization has to comply with. And where AI is concerned, the risk is just too high to not have somebody who can really help you navigate those waters.
Hmm. Yeah, it's funny that you said that because I also sometimes find myself outsourcing, the brain part, the thinking to AI, while I know that AI is only interpreting, information that's on the internet. It cannot think on its own, but it makes it seems like it's thinking, but it's not. So, yeah,
And
that's
the reality is that these AI companies have made it so conversational that
yeah,
it acts like your buddy or your
yeah,
therapist or
yeah.
your priest. And the reality is that you kind of have to keep that in check, right?
Mm,
I see that all the time. That even as we start to use it, not understanding that, okay, this is after all a tool, right? We're using this. It's at best it's an inference engine, right? It's able to infer what you're asking. It's able to process information very quickly. Its coding capabilities are fantastic as well. But one of the biggest limitations that we see with all these vibe coders, the role of the business analyst and systems analyst, AI can't do that, right? You still need somebody to be able to manage the development process. You still need somebody that's going to be able to really have an understanding for process alignment. And while AI is made great strides forward with UI and UX, I've got to say, from what I've seen, there's still quite a bit to be desired there. And it takes some time to work with your people to understand ergonomically what makes sense where. And what's going to provide the best efficiency? How do we get this information displayed? What information is over the top? Right? Those are big things too. And to insist upon logging, like as a security guy, I want to see every record about everything that ever happened. And that's not natural in most coding environments when you're using AI. It's things it can do, but you really have to have an understanding of what you're asking it to do, and really have an understanding of what application architecture is going to look like, even in that. Now, imagine what this looks like when it comes to security. If you're really not asking the right questions, you're not going to get the right answers. It really comes down to response quality is based on prompt quality. And if you don't know the right questions to ask and just think that AI is going to, think for itself, it's not. It's going to do exactly what you ask it to do. And if you're limited in your scope of your prompt, its response is going to be limited to the scope of your prompt.
mm. Yeah, that's a great tip. I think the length of your prompt really correlates to how good the output will be. At least that's what I found. So
Absolutely.
how are you what's the goal with I know you already mentioned it, but what's the near future goal of Isidore Group in this year?
AI is the new frontier, and what we're seeing is that you can spend 10 minutes on Instagram and you can see that everywhere you turn, there is some AI agency out there trying to help clients do incorporate AI in some way. The reality is that it has to be a holistic approach, or businesses stand to lose way too much. I see all of these people talking about agentic AI and having open claw just kind of function as its own customer service rep or whatever it is. I'm a little terrified by that, and I'm in the industry and I understand the safeguards that we can put in place, and still that's what we do. For example, we use an internal system that we've created that allows our technicians to quickly process tickets that come through, and we have some AI that's built into it, like I said initially, in the triaging process. We have some tools that provide diagnostic information to our client, to our text that's built into it. But we also have the ability for the tech to sit there and ask the AI a question about a particular issue. And we can actually determine what we send to the AI for that. Now, in this case, we're using Azure OpenAI, and the reason we're
Hmm.
doing that is because every single conversation stays within our private Azure container, everything. And as a matter of fact, we actually don't store any of that information. We just maintain metadata of the log in our logs of the information that's sent, and we do not let the AI maintain any information. So every time we send a request, we're sending quite a bit of information along with it, so that the AI can make a reasonable inference and then dump it so that it's not maintained. It's not learning on it. It's not using that information for anything. But we've also put up gates for our level one technicians too, because there's no reason to believe that you ask the AI a question and it won't give you registry edits or other kinds of suggestions that a level one technician is not qualified to perform at the Isidore. So we've put those gates in place as well. And that is one of the ways that we're able to do that. Now, we can do that for our clients too, and we have, where we can create a prompt library, we can limit the scope, we can make sure that we put these safeguards in place so that when they're using AI, the responses that come back are limited to what should be capable for the person asking that question. Those kinds of things really make a big difference. But again, this is not something that just happens out of the box. These are things that you're going to have to work with somebody who understands AI, understands compliance, understands your business, so that we can build those proper safeguards around it. It's just a
Mm.
different world now, and we really have to have an eye for it.
Interesting, interesting. And um, you probably have a lot of experience, right, from doing this over the years. So looking back kind of on the experience that you've gathered over the years, if you would start the Isadora group today, mm, is there something that you would do particularly different?
Hmm, it's a really good question. So, I'm the type of person that looks at where things are today, and if I'm happy with them, I'd sit. My response would generally be, um, if I had to go back and do it all over again, I'd do my best efforts to make sure I don't change a thing, so I'd end up where I am today. I think that generally that is the case. Are there lessons that we learned along the way? Absolutely. Are there things that I wish we would have done different initially? Sure. But when I look back on it, even those mistakes, those errors and judgments that we've made along the way, they've really helped us. They really have shaped who we are today. And I'm one of those people who truly believes that we learn more from our mistakes than we do from our successes. So
Mhm.
I don't know if I would necessarily want to go back and change anything in any large regard. I'm really happy with the company that we've built here. I'm really happy with the work that we're able to do and the great people that work for us. The attention that we've always spent on helping our coworkers develop themselves in their own field. One of the things that we're really passionate about is that we want our technicians to obtain and maintain certifications to the extent that we actually pay for training and we pay for those certifications, and they can be quite costly. So and essentially what we're doing is we're taking our staff and we're making them more marketable and more expensive, but and we're paying for that. But ultimately, it's making them better, and they're able to deliver a higher quality of service to our clients. And that's really
Mm.
what's important to us. We'll take the backside risk of that, but ultimately, I'd say if we had to do it all over again, I'm happy to accept all of our successes and all of our failures for helping us find additional success. So
That's
yeah, I don't
great.
think I change a thing.
Okay, and Sebastian, for people listening that would like to contact you or reach out or just check out Isadora Group and what you guys are up to, where should they go?
So best place to start out is on our website. So you go to IsidoreGroup.com. That's ISIDORE group.com. And check us out there. There's quite a bit of information and it's easy to get in touch with us. You can see a lot about what we do. We are based in the Chicagoland area, but we've got clients coast to coast, and we have since our inception. It's one of the things that really kind of differentiates us is that we spend a good amount of time making sure that our clients have built-in resilience to the extent that even if they are 3,000 miles away, we can still support them. So, that's the key there. But yeah, check us out online, www.isidoregroup.com, or give us a call at 630-884-8840. Either
Well,
way.
no. Well, so you've heard it, guys, and thank you for joining, Sebastian.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the time.